July 17, 2020, and welcome to BNAP Today. I'm Mike Ryan. Today, the Chinese economy rebounds after a steep slump. Questions on South Korea's commitment to fighting climate change. We catch up with Premier Franchise Advisors Joe Bourdow and talk about trust in business. Vijay Mohan Raj from SKÅL, the world's largest organisation of travel and tourism professionals, talks COVID and travel. And because it's a Friday, we have something from our wacko file that is just simply too bizarre to believe. But first, the headlines. Coming up next, China rebounds.
We are lions. We bring hope where it's needed. We are a global force for good. Join the movement. Support causes that matter. Change lives. Change communities. Change the world. We can do more together than we can alone. Join in. Experience the joy of serving. Be part of the movement. Give back. Let's unite the world for good. We are lions. You can be too. Visit weserve.org.
And welcome back. China's economy returned to growth in the second quarter after a deep slump at the start of the year. Gloria Tso has more.
China is now the first major economy that has recovered since the global health crisis began. On Thursday, it posted 3.2% growth in the second quarter compared to last year, bouncing back from a record contraction. It may be thanks to an end in lockdown measures and policymakers stepping up stimulus to help fight the shock of the crisis. But as the health crisis continues to surge in other countries around the world, Chinese official Liu Aihua says it may take time for things to get back to normal.
The global economy and trade, one can say, is struggling to get started again. The recovery of domestic demand is currently subject to certain constraints. The pressure to stabilize enterprises and employment is still relatively large.
China's bounce back was still its weakest expansion on record and followed a steep decline of nearly 7% in the first quarter, the first fall in China's growth since records began in 1992. But it's also higher than a Reuters analyst prediction, which forecast a bounce of 2.5%. China is the world's second largest economy and has been recovering slowly in the past 2 months. Officials have expressed confidence that the economy will continue to recover in the second half of the year.
A South Korean company is threatening an Indonesian village. Libby Hogan has more.
Indonesian fisherman Ramadan says he has to go out further and further out to sea to catch the stingray his family has sold for generations. A giant coal power complex has grown nearby over the last 3 decades, looming over Suralaya village. Ramadan and others there worry about pollution in the air and water, and they fear things are about to get worse. A large state-run power company from South Korea, KEPCO, confirmed weeks ago it plans to add 2 more 1,000 megawatt units to the plant.
It used to be closer to the shore to get fish, but since those power plants were built, the waste may affect the fish and they went away.
Beyond the impact to life in Suralaya, South Korea's lead role in the plant seems to run against its commitment to fight climate change. President Moon Jae-in's Green New Deal was first proposed in the lead-up to his party's victory in April elections. It touts new jobs and a net-zero emissions target by 2050. They included loose pledges to end support for coal at home and overseas. On Tuesday, Moon revealed new projects ranging from funds for electric vehicles to tax breaks for telecoms at the cost of nearly $95 billion.
The new projects are expected to create 890,000 jobs through 2022 and 1.9 million jobs through 2025.
Some analysts have questioned South Korea's commitment to fighting climate change and called the Green New Deal an empty promise. KEPCO investors, including asset management BlackRock, have raised concerns about the company backing new coal plants. KEPCO said it takes climate change seriously and that the proposed Indonesian project meets the environmental standards set in South Korea. The Indonesian government also say the new coal units will use the latest technology and minimize pollution. But the potential cost may taint the promise of South Korea's Green Deal. Greenpeace says the $3.5 billion expansion project could result in up to 1,500 premature deaths over the typical 30-year lifespan of a coal-fired power plant. They say even air quality in the capital Jakarta could be affected. And locals in Suralaya village told Reuters they're skeptical. Ramadan, the fisherman, says where he once only had to paddle out to fish, he now uses a motor, weaving between vast, uncovered barges stacked high with coal.
Coming up next, trust in business and Joe Bourdow. Joe Bourdow is a partner with Premier Franchise Advisors and has a 45-year business career, including 2 terms on the International Franchise Association's Board of Directors. Joe Bourdow, nice to have you on the air again. Thank you very much.
Good to be back with you a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, and beautiful in St. Pete today.
Yeah, it's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and we are still dealing with spiking numbers with COVID-19. So nothing much has changed here. Certainly has not gotten any better.
Hunker down and have a continuous supply of margaritas. That's my suggestion.
A good idea. Yeah.
Okay, principles of trust and cooperation. What are they?
Well, I'd like to break it down into the simplest possible items, and at least so I can understand it. And when you think about why you trust somebody and why you are likely to cooperate with them, it comes down, in my mind at least, to a couple of different things. One is you listen to what they say, and what they say over time tends to be consistent. And then you look at what they do, and you see whether they do what they said they were going to do on a consistent basis. And over time, trust builds up. And if it's in a business setting, you tend to cooperate with them. This really starts in sales. If you're trying to develop a relationship with a customer, trust is very important in that situation to get their cooperation with doing what you think they should be doing, and to make a sale. Now, in an organizational setting, it gets even more magnified because the definition of leadership is you're leading more than one person, and so that opens up a whole nother set of issues with trust and cooperation. But it starts there, and how people hear what you say, how people see what you do, and is it consistent over time, and can they begin to trust you?
You mentioned leadership. Just tell us about what makes a good leader. I mean, with the military, it used to be firm, fair, honest, and approachable. What about in business?
Well, in my opinion, at least, and in most cultures, I think it works that if the people you are trying to lead trust you, it's going to be a whole lot easier than if they don't. In organizations where there is no trust of management and leadership, people spend all kinds of time creating noise and worrying about everything except what they should be worrying about. So good leadership is going to cut the noise in an organization and have more likelihood of success.
How hard is it to achieve when you're running numerous franchised businesses around the country and the globe?
Well, I think around the country, at least, the difficulty is realizing that it gets harder than if you're dealing with a small group of people all in one office. In a franchise organization, you're dealing with a bunch of CEOs. These are people who own their own businesses, their own franchises, and they are going to be looking very, very closely at their leader, their franchisor, and to decide if they're going to cooperate with what the franchisor wants to do. And if there's a breakdown in trust, there's not going to be cooperation. If there's really a bad breakdown in trust, there's could be lawsuits. There could be franchise associations formed. There could be all kinds of time being spent on things that are not productive because trust and cooperation has broken down. Around the world and globally, it gets even more difficult because you have different cultures, and it's very easy for a leader to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing if they've not taken enough time to, one, understand, and two, respect a culture that is not their own. So it's the same thing, but it just gets more difficult and more complicated, and the leader needs to spend more time thinking about what they're saying and making sure that what they're doing is consistent with what they are saying, and if it's not, make sure they explain it.
Can you teach trust and cooperation? I mean, it's a fairly bizarre question, I think, but it's a pertinent one at the same time.
Well, I think it's an easy concept to understand, so yeah, it should be easy to teach, but I think it usually gets transferred more through coaching and mentoring. I remember when I first walked into my corporate job, I said something, and my boss at the time came over and put his arm around me and said, "You can't say that, because when you say something like that, it gets reported all the way down the hall, and by the time it gets to the other end, it's going to be completely misinterpreted. And people are going to start to wonder what you really meant to say, or what you really mean, or what you really think, and then you've got that noise again. You've got a breakdown in trust, and it's going to be harder to cooperate." So I was mentored and coached very well, on this topic, and I was able to make the transition from a small business to a large organization as a result.
What are some examples where things have turned around maybe as a result of people being able to bring trust into their organization and business relationships, and how was this actually achieved?
Well, it starts out by identifying where the breakdown occurred. And that's not easy to do. That gets back to the earlier discussion we had a few weeks ago about the need to be a reporter. When I look at a situation, in my world, a franchise organization that is having franchise relations issues or troubles getting something done they want to do, or there's some controversy or dispute, my tendency is always to try to get access to all the people involved and, again, become a reporter again. I want to go back and talk to people who have been very happy in the past and be able to identify when something changed. What changed? Did somebody do something? Did somebody say something? What happened? Because, if I'm speaking to one of the franchisees, I would say, you've done very well with this. You've been very successful. You've obviously been happy in the past. What happened? And then I go around and look for consensus to see if that's just that person's opinion or this is really a true story. And once I think I've got the story, then I'm going to go back to the leader and say, here's what I'm hearing, let's talk about it and see if we can get a resolution of what the issue is. You can't fix the problem until you've diagnosed the problem. So you got to spend a lot of time diagnosing a problem. If you do fix that, identify what it is correctly, and then get everybody together and discuss it, resolve it, you'd be surprised how quickly, once trust comes back, you get cooperation. But then you've got to be very, very careful that you don't break that. You don't have an unforced error, because in many organizations, certainly in franchise organizations, you can have wonderful trust and cooperation for 4 or 5 years, and suddenly something happens, somebody does something, somebody says something, and it's like you never had it in the first place, and you have to go back and start over. But it's very typical. It happens all the time. It has certainly happened in my organization many times, and you just simply have to be sensitive to it, because if you're really trying to get a progress, evolution, in our company, we were able to get really a reinvention of the business to be more of a national business and not just a bunch of local people running around. And that required renegotiation of an entire franchise agreement and a lot of things, which if we had not had a good level of trust, we never would have had that cooperation.
From your experience, Joe, are there types of structures or cultures of businesses where it's harder to achieve a high level of trust and cooperation?
Yeah, there's some good research that's out there on the topic of the the kind of we hear about cultures, but the personality of organizations. And there are collaborative personalities and there are dictatorial personalities. So obviously, if an organization is being run in an extremely structured top-down fashion, you're going to have to hope that you have the right people working there, or that the right people have selected it as a franchise for them to trust the leader. So certainly some company cultures are easier to maintain trust and cooperation than others, but it's important regardless of the kind of organization you have.
In this day and age, terrible day. I mean, well, it's not a terrible day. We still wake up. That's pretty good, I would imagine. But we've still got COVID-19. It just won't go to bed. It's going to be around for a long time. I can see trust and cooperation being two of the major ingredients in one, staying in business, and two, maintaining a good relationship, not only with your customers, but with also other franchisors and franchisees.
Yeah, we've really seen that since March, when this all began to happen. Franchisors have cooperated with each other, as you say, through the International Association to really an unprecedented degree in terms of the number of webinars and cooperative information sharing, that has taken place. Within individual companies, those companies that had a culture and tradition of trust and cooperation have generally done better than those that didn't. But even those that did have a good tradition needed to be very aware that it was a time to over-communicate, not just one-way communication, but constant two-way communication, both one-on-one, in individual groups and everything else, because franchisors were having to do unprecedented things, as were franchisees and local management of the units, that they had never done before. And so it was important and continues to be very important as we go through this here this summer and fall, that the people out in the franchise units or in the offices around the country or around the world realizes that everybody is in this together. Everybody is having to experiment and do things that, perhaps have not been fully tested, fully vetted, but we're all in this together. We're all trying to get through this successfully and out the other end as a sustainable, successful company going forward into the future. So the one thing that's had to get multiplied many times over the last few months has been communication in order to maintain some level of trust and cooperation. Communication
is one of your fortes. Talked about it last time. Need to ask you again. Anything exciting happening in the world of St. Pete Radio?
Well, thank you for asking. We've gathered an even larger group of volunteers in the last couple of weeks. We are awaiting our approval from the federal government, from the Federal Communications Commission, to take over the FM frequency here in St. Petersburg. But otherwise, we've got all kinds of programming going on the internet. So we're looking forward to taking that next step with this local nonprofit organization. Thanks for asking.
My pleasure. Have a margarita tonight. Just quickly, if somebody wants to call you prior or after the margarita, how do they get hold of Joe Bourdow and Premier Franchise Advisors?
Joe at premierfranchiseadvisors.com is the easiest way to do it. And I will promptly answer the email.
Fantastic. We'll talk again very shortly. Joe Bourdow, thank you very much.
Thanks. Nice being with you.
Joe Bourdow from Premier Franchise Advisors. Coming up next, we cross to India and Hyderabad.
We are here.
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 Welcome back to BNAP Today. Vijay Mohan Raj is Managing Director of Sameera Travel and Tours based in Hyderabad with decades of experience in the Indian market. He's also International Director of SKÅL, which is the largest organisation of travel and tourism professionals, and much to my joy is a former Ranji or Ranji cricket player. Is it Ranji or Ranji?
It's Ranji.
Lovely to meet you. How is it in Hyderabad today, sir?
It's been raining. Right now it's very pleasant. And we are blessed, and especially in Hyderabad, we are blessed with good weather through the year, except for probably April and May when it's very hot. It's about 42 degrees at that time.
Wow.
But the rest of the year is amazing. It's beautiful.
A beautiful city. I haven't been there, and I just keep looking at pictures on the internet. Look, you're involved in the travel and touring business, 30 plus years experience in India. Tell us about your business and how you're weathering this crisis.
Well, my company started in the year 1988, and since then we've grown organically, as well as we've done a lot of new things. And we are basically into business corporate travel and MICE. So at this time, which is a crucial crisis time, there is no travel at all. So all the business has been stalled temporarily. But we have taken this opportunity during these 2-3 months to organize a lot of training for our people who are working. I have about 50 people who work for me. And we've used this opportunity to train them, to upgrade them on different fields of travel. So those who were not into leisure have learnt leisure right now. Those who were not into ticketing have also picked up a bit of ticketing. So there has been a lot of training that has happened during this period. But well, that's only because we have no business really.
International visitors compared to domestic, which is the greater for yourself?
Well, we have international business is our major revenue earner. Domestic is, in terms of volume, is very large, but the revenues that we earn basically is from MICE and from international ticketing.
What's your outlook for the travel industry in India and then around the world, considering that COVID-19 is really starting to get its teeth into business?
Well, I think nobody expected something like this could happen in the lifetime, and we are all on waiting to see what will happen. As a matter of fact, nobody knows what to do. They don't know how long it will last, and they don't know what is the future. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the future is bright, because there is something like a terminology called revenge tourism. When tourism is taken a back seat in the past as well, during, say, we had SARS earlier, we had some other situations where business had come down, and then after that it picked up and it went 1.5 times also. So I think it will pick up. I'm sure once the vaccine is found and there's a solution medically, I think this business will pick up again, and it will pick up in a bigger way.
What about local business in Hyderabad? How's it handling COVID-19, and is there optimism in your city?
Well, I think with this COVID happening, it's a matter of survival. So I think the small business, that is people who are self-employed, they are the ones who've taken the major hit, and there are a lot of them because they don't have any other avenue of income. The bigger people, that is the people like Carlson and FCM and many others, they have high overheads. So they have let a lot of the staff go because they cannot afford to pay. Now this has gone on from March onwards, rather February onwards. March onwards, and March, April, May, June, and now we are in July. So they have now let many of their employees go, and it's created unemployment of some kind.
So do you think the government's doing enough, and what more can they do?
Well, I think our government has its limitations because we are not a rich country as such. The focus has been more on those who are the have-nots, people who are struggling for their daily meals and their housing and things like that. And we have a large number of people who cannot afford, who are on daily wages and who cannot afford to have no income. So the government has focused basically on that. As far as our industry is concerned and as far as our trade is concerned, I think they could have done something much more than they have. But at the same time, we as associations are trying our best to get the government to understand that they are supposed to look after the trade. They have in certain industries, not in travel, but in industries given facility like giving more moratoriums on loans. They've also approved loans for people who are in MSMEs, that is small, medium industries. So things are happening, but not really as much as we would have thought they could have done.
What advice do you have because no matter where you are, whether you're in the United States, throughout Asia, India, Australia, New Zealand, anywhere in the world, you're all going through this terrible time. And what sort of advice, say from a person of your importance being a director with SKÅL, what would you give your members?
Well, the only thing that we can do is direct the members. As director, I can give direction. In the sense, I can give them some advice on what they should be doing. Also, as a director of SKÅL, and they look up to the leadership to create some new ideas or to negotiate with authorities like the policymakers and all. Not that I can do much with policy making, because we have various associations in India. See, there are different associations, like for travel agents, they have a separate association. And for tour operators, they have a separate association. But SKÅL is a melting pot. Like you have people from 30 classifications who are members of SKÅL. So it's a great opportunity for people to interact, to discuss and deliberate of all the different aspects of their problems. And I think we listen to these problems and try our best to give them direction.
If somebody wants to find out more about SKÅL, for example, in India, how would they do that?
Well, they have to, we have a website, skol.org, and also we have a very strong national committee. In the sense, we have 14 clubs in India, and they are linked to each other through the national committee. And I am Director International, so my link with them is on the with the national committee is whenever there are issues or some discussions or some things to be carried to international, that's my job. See, I carry that to them. But India is very fortunate. We have 14 clubs, and during this COVID period, our clubs have been very active in having webinars, and they have been showcasing. Every club has been showcasing their products. For example, if you are a member of a Bombay club and you wanted to showcase your products, you had an opportunity to connect with all the Scullies all over India, and as a matter of fact, all over the world, and showcase India. So this lockdown has given a lot of opportunity to people to showcase their products on the webinars. There are a lot of webinars happening.
And it's almost a brand new, it's only been up for a few months, new site for SKÅL, and it really has everything there. You got a fabulous Facebook page and other means of communication, and that's what it's all about at the moment, isn't it, Vijay? Communication.
That's right. I would like to just tell you one thing, that SKÅL is being underestimated actually. SKÅL is the only organization in the world which has got 350 clubs and 350 cities rather. Now what is happening is that every city most of the clubs are very active. They meet once in say a month or once in 45 days, and they network with each other. And in SKÅL you can have a travel agent, a tour operators, car rentals. There are 30 different classifications. And a lot of people don't realize that this is the only way, and this is the best way actually, and especially during this crisis, it's great to be a member of SKÅL, so that you can get an opportunity to meet people from different fields in your own industry, so that you can promote each other, and as well, it's not only in the city, it gives you an opportunity to showcase your products to people in different cities and even globally through the website.
Important to have people with like minds to bounce ideas off, to have that shoulder to lean on at times. We have to have a small piece of indulgence here. Tell us about Hyderabad, why it's the best place in the world to visit.
Well, I did the SKÅL 2017 World Congress in Hyderabad. I don't know whether you're aware of it. And at that time, when I was campaigning, I was going around the world using different forums to talk about Hyderabad. I learned a lot about Hyderabad. So first of all, it's got history. It's a 400 plus years of history. Second is that Hyderabad, the climate is so good that anybody from anywhere in the world will be comfortable coming here. And last the people here are very friendly. We have people in Hyderabad from all over India. It's not that language is not an issue. You could be speaking English, you could be speaking the local language, and you can be comfortable over here. And not many people are aware that in a campaign that I did, that was done by Merck in the year 2016, Hyderabad was in the first 15 best cities in the world to live in. So in India, all the other cities are after 15. So we were the best city to live in during the 2016 analysis that was done by Merck. So Hyderabad has got a lot of advantages. I know people in other countries know Delhi, Bombay, Chennai, Calcutta. They don't know about Hyderabad much, but that's because Hyderabad is a smaller city in terms of numbers. I would say that every 10 employees, every 10 people who get employment, one is in the travel and tourism industry. So that's how important SKÅL is and travel and tourism into the world.
Fantastic. Vijay, thank you very much. Enjoy the day, and we'll talk later.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Because it's Friday, and from our slightly offbeat file is this, and I've got to tell you, this is for real. Fast food chain Burger King has released an ad encouraging US farmers to change the diet of cows in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Burger King says by adding lemongrass to cow diets, this could ease digestion.
When cows fart and burp and splatter, well, it ain't no laughing matter. They're releasing methane every time they do. And that methane from the rear goes up to the atmosphere and pollutes our planet, warming me and you. Yes, that methane that they pass is a greenhouse gas that'll trap the sun's heat and change our climate too. Gee! Is it hot in here, or is it just me? So to change their emissions, Burger King went on a mission, testing diets that would help reduce their farts. That's a start. And now they're in a question that it's helping cows' digestion, adding lemongrass so they can play their part. Woo-hoo. Reducing methane, and the scientists have proven that it works. Reducing methane, we can reduce emissions by more than a third.
If my cow ain't farting, must be me.
Reducing methane, and the formula is free and open source. So join in. Reducing methane, got the cow kids singing for a better world. Got the cow kids singing for a better world.
I told you this was nuts. That's it for the week. Have a great weekend too. Looking forward to a margarita or two, maybe three. Be safe and be kind. I'm Mike Ryan.